I am ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9 to the Sky. Now, I had a fantastical plan for today's episode. I wanted to start the video off with an awesome building time-lapse to showcase all of the stuff that I was working on and transforming in between episodes. But unfortunately, the replay mod that I was utilizing is a port, and well, it does have its own bugs, and I definitely experienced that during this replay. So unfortunately, there's no replay. But I am going to try my best to explain and show off what I did during that building experience. So with all of my disappointment out of the way, it's now time to show you the base. And boy, is it changed. Very changed. Yes, I went through and I set aside all of my building materials inside energy condensers, and I went to work on building all of this out. Now, I went up vertically, basically maintaining the same shapes that I already had. The only major thing that I've done is I used my exchanging gadget to essentially replace all of these blocks. And I went with different variations of gray concrete, and I used this bad boy over here, the mason table from Chipped. And it is so much easier to use now than it used to be. You just place the items in, and every item in your inventory, it can convert all in one. So I just went through here, replaced it all, and then just added a randomized pattern by hand with my gadget. That's where it would have been really cool to have that replay. I also did the same thing up top here. Now, while you may not be able to fully copy the exact floor pattern if you like to build what I'm building during my Let's Plays, I will go ahead and give you guys some dimensions. So this platform right here is 39 blocks in length, and the verticality on this is 15 blocks high. And then we have 16 blocks from the front to the back, essentially. Now, from the pipe, I have a 13 block distance into our middle section. And from the back wall, that is going to be a distance of 15 from this section. Now, the middle part is a 17 by 17 that is 14 blocks tall. Or it should be 15 blocks tall, I do believe. No, 14 is definitely correct because it is 14 from this platform, whereas this one starts one block higher. So this one is set to 15 and this one is set to 14. They're both, however, equal to each other. Now, remember the idea where I had mentioned I wanted to have pipes running through this? Well, boy, oh boy, I tried my best to make an interesting pipe design while also making it the feature of this whole base. And we're going to be doing some interesting things with these pipes in the future. But for right now, they are just sort of a focal point and a different color. Now, there's going to be a lot more done. This is just the framework of the base. There is not like anything else done other than just framing put up. I've not put any roofs on or anything like that, and I've not even put the walls in. I have, however, outlined the interior section of these walls with some white concrete because I thought it looked really, really nice, and also added a pattern up back with this. Now, to be able to get these pipes in, I truly only built one of these pipes out by hand because the other ones I actually used the copy-paste gadget. So the copy-paste gadget, I was able to select one corner of this and the other, and then I just needed to have the materials in my hand, and I was able to use this. This has some really cool features. You can see right here, this is what it looks like, and you can actually anchor your positions in. So this is what it looked like to paste it in. Keep in mind, it does use your actual items. It's not like it's a free thing or anything like that. But you can rotate it. So you can rotate it on the axis there all the way around in any direction. And with it anchored, you can click the settings menu here and you can start to play around with its positioning. And this is how you can get it in the exact position you want to be placed, which is fantastic, by the way. So I just wanted to show that off in case you were wondering, because I know a lot has changed between episodes. It kind of seems a little bit drastic, but in reality, the only thing I did was I finally finished out the colors and started to work on my color palette, which you can see right here, which consists of some different concrete. We have polished deep slate, gray concrete, calcite, diorite, and some stripped acacia, which make this all pop. Now, before we jump into some more mods today, be sure to let me know down in the comment below. Is there any cool idea that you would love for me to add to this base? Because I would love to implement your ideas, and the comments are the best way for me to get those. And so I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. So back to what we're actually going to be working on today, and that is going to be power. That's right, we're going to be diving into the Powah mod and hopefully utilizing LaserIO in order to do that. Now, yes, I did say LaserIO, and I've heard from a lot of you that LaserIO can be kind of hard to think about to get into, but I'm going to try my best to explain it and show you how powerful it actually is to utilize in your projects around your base. After this video, you will understand the power of LaserIO, or at least the basic parts of the power of LaserIO. And oh, how that blends in perfectly, because speaking of power in LaserIO, we're going to be using it to automate Powah, or at least semi-automate Powah. Now, real quick, the reasoning behind getting into Powah today is because it is going to not only provide a really nice power generation source, but it also allows you to do wireless power and also wireless player power, all of which is going to allow us to make much nicer looking builds and setups, and is also going to allow us to wirelessly charge our jetpack and or any other device such as our gadgets. And while there are many mods in this pack that do that same functionality, none are as versatile in my opinion as the Powah mod. I will say, however, the only downfall to Powah is its loop of crafting recipes. It does get kind of tedious, but because we actually have blaze powder and all kinds of stuff that we got last episode, we should be able to easily get into this mod. And the reason I say blaze powder, and that is because it is used for the quote unquote easy recipe for the dielectric paste. The other one would require constant buckets of lava. And we all know how tedious manual crafting with buckets are. However, I guess this particular storage does a fantastic job of handling buckets. But now, depending on what storage mod you chose, well, things may differ. Now, bear in mind, for today's episode, we are going to need a lot of iron. We're going to also need a lot of clay. We're going to need some redstone, some quartz, and we're also going to need a lot of coal. And not to mention the blaze. And if you're trying to figure out how to get a bunch of blaze, well, last episode is the video for you. Now, to dive into the Powah mod, one of the first things we're going to need to make is the energizing orb. While not technically the first thing to get into any of the components, this is something you definitely want to get automated and set up as soon as possible. And it's going to require the combination of a bunch of individual components. For example, the dielectric paste being used to make the different rods. There is a vertical and horizontal version, and also the casing, which utilizes those things. Now, this simple looking device is not so simple, because it basically allows you to pipe in more items than its initial crafting recipes require, meaning this requires a little bit of finagling to get to work. That is, if you want to somewhat automate this. Now, we're going to also need a way to power our energizing orb, and one of the best ways to do that is through the energizing rods. It's the only way to do it, honestly, because it is the way that we power our energizer. And this has multiple different recipes and multiple different tiers, all getting better as we go. That's kind of the thing we're going to be doing with this mod, is slowly but surely tiering up. So I am going to need these, and these are going to also require some capacitors. Like I said, this is going to require a little bit of redstone, a little bit of gold, just a little bit of everything. So with those made, I have them now placed down, and they are receiving power from the basic universal cables. So this is how it's going to receive some power. Now, what I want to do is make sure that they are linked. So I have the Powah wrench, and you can hold down shift and right click the air to change its mode. It has rotate, link. There's also config. So make sure you're in link mode, and you just want to make sure that all of these cables are connected, because the range on these are honestly not that great. So if you have them too far away, they may not be able to connect to your energizing orb. So now with that set up, let me show you the first recipes that we're going to be making with this, as there are honestly a bunch. And there's actually some that are specific to this pack that we're going to be getting into as well. So the first is going to require iron, and it's going to require gold. So both of those things, let's go ahead and grab those out. And we will see immediately, if I try to place this in, it places in one, and I place this in, it places in. It's all good. The lasers fire, and we end up getting ourselves energized steel. The problem comes when we need to hopper items into it, or pipe items. I like to use hoppers to demonstrate. But if we were to try and hopper things in, if I put, for example, these iron in, notice it starts to overfill this. And that's where the problem resides in automation. So to solve this problem, this is actually a fundamental mechanic of automation and logistics within modded Minecraft. We need to figure out how to regulate these items going in here. And so there's a few different ways we can do that. The vanilla way would be to use a comparator to detect the amount of items that are inside here, and then send the redstone to lock the said hoppers, whether they're on both sides, to prevent them from sending items in. And this works great. especially for just putting these two items in. You can have your iron on this side, gold on this side, and then when it does receive that there's an item in here, in which both would be able to put in at once, it then locks the hoppers whenever we have a redstone signal running out of this, and then amplified out the side with a repeater. And that automation looks very much like this. So if I go ahead and I grab this out of here, and we're probably gonna have to do this for the first couple, but if I give it a redstone signal, a lever to make sure that this is locked, we can demonstrate this quite well. So these are now locked in their current position. So I'll put my gold in and I'll put my iron in. When I unlock this, this is going to automatically lock, only keeping those two items in. And we can actually put, for example, a hopper or something like that underneath, and that hopper will collect those items, but it doesn't collect the items that are inside. Thus, this is automated with vanilla redstone. But now this does get a little bit more complicated when we start to get into more complex recipes that this thing has us make. And that's where a mod like LaserIO really starts to shine. So let's talk a little bit about this item logistics mod, which is LaserIO, made by Direwolf. It is fantastic and has pretty much all of the utilities you could probably ever want from an item routing mod. So if you've played with the pipes mod, this mod should be very familiar to you as well, because all of its mechanics are essentially in this as well. But there's a lot more to it than that particular mod, and there's a lot more things that this mod can do that that one cannot. So first of all, let's talk about how can we regulate very specific amounts of items going into this from an inventory. Well, the way you want to think about these LaserIO nodes is they are a way of transporting items from one location to another. They do not have an inventory or anything like that, so we do need an inventory for it to pull from. So essentially, it's going to take items out of this barrel, and then we want to send those items and regulate them going over here. And in here, I have some item cards. These are going to be needed. You're going to need a card for pulling items out and sending items from a node. And there's a lot of different slots in here to be able to do that. And by the way, with your bookmarks and stuff getting in the way, something that's very handy is you can hit Control and O to remove those bookmarks, making things a little bit easier to see. Now, LaserIO has gotten so much better over the years, and it is very nice now. The reason I say that is because now you can see what's directly connected to what side, so no longer do you need to worry about what is connected to what. So we know that connected here on the north side, this is a side of this block that we can interact. And also, if you right click on here, you can pull this in. And what we want to do is we want to access this side of the block, and we want to tell the item card, hey, I want to look at this block here, and I want you to pull items out. So by default, we can go ahead and put that in this slot, and then we can right click on this item card. When we do that, we can tell this card what to do. And one of those things is extract. And that's very simple. This is about as simple as it gets. You have an insert card and you have an extract card. Now, something to note that you can do with this, you can increase the transfer rate on here and lower the tick speed between transfer rates. That's what this is over here. And something else to note, this works very similar to how Ender.io cables used to work in the past. There's also a channel system in here that utilizes colors. So if you have an exporter that's looking for an orange channel and you have an importer over here that is set to orange, it will try to send to that orange. And that's the only thing it's going to communicate with. By default, we'll just leave it all alone, and I'll show you how simple this can actually get. So that's set to extract. Now over here, we want this side, and I can just click up here. We want to look for the energizing orb, which is connected here. And for that, we just want an insert card. And that's as simple as it gets. I can just leave this, and that should now pull items out of here and send it into this. And I can show you that, and you can see the item immediately went into the energizing orb. But we want to limit how those items go into the energizing orb. And that's where we can start to filter things. And this is where it gets a little bit more powerful. So I have myself a counting filter. And if I put this in, this is a filter that has very special parameters that we can assign. And so we want iron and gold, right, to be regulated. And notice when I put a whole stack in here, it's going to show that I have a whole stack. Or I can increase the amount or decrease the amount. What I want is I want to say only put one in at a time for both of these items. I want it to regulate them. If I was to increase this, this would put 2 iron in and 1 gold in, and that's all that it would ever let inside that inventory. Same goes for any inventory, not just the energizing orb. So with that configured, this is essentially ready to go. However, the hopper down here, I do want to show you that we can get rid of, and I want to show you another interesting feature of LaserIO. But let me just show you by putting these items in that this will do that same mechanic. Notice it's going to put 2 in and it doesn't let any more in. Interesting, right? Now, what if I told you that I could connect a LaserIO node to the side of this and I could pull specifically from the bottom of this block from any side of the energizing orb? Well, believe it or not, it actually has the innate ability to do that. And we could do it from this single node right here, utilizing a different channel. And so this, I think, would be the best demonstration of utilizing one node for this operation. Now, you could avoid using channels altogether if you wanted to, and hopefully this isn't too confusing. But if you just placed another node that was its own separate thing, you would basically use these same cards like we just did, but they would be opposite of each other. Now, in this particular case, what I want to do now is I want to pull the result out of here and send it back into the barrel. So now a way that I can do that is by accessing this side here, the same side that we are sending items into, and I'm going to put another card over here. But this card is going to be a little different. We want this card to be extracting. But I don't want to extract on the regular channel because no, that would interfere with what we currently have. Basically, it would pull the item out and then send the item back in because it's all linked to that one channel, right? Because these cards are looking, the export cards are essentially looking for a insert card. So how do I change this? Well, I need to change the channel. And this is how we can have multiple cards doing multiple things where they don't interact with one another. But there's also another part to this extract that we need to tell it. We need to tell it what face of the block we want it to pull from. And this is a cool thing that this mod can do. So we can go back to our card here, and over here there is a button that lets you choose what side of this block you want to pull from. And specifically, we want to pull from the bottom side of the block. That's going to basically work as if that hopper was directly underneath, even though it's connected to the side. And this is really cool because we could use this in a ton of other different situations. But for right now, what I want to do is I just want to send it to an insert card. So if I put this insert card in here, it's not going to do anything. We're not doing anything at the moment with that insert card until I change this to the orange channel. As soon as I do that, notice that got pulled and now went back into the barrel. And so that is how channels work. Essentially right now we have a multi-channel node where we have an item that is being pulled right here on the white channel and sent to the white channel. And then the result then gets extracted using the orange channel and moves its way back here. And that's about as simple as this gets. And all of this works, mind you, with energy. It also works with fluids, the items that you just seen, and also redstone. So essentially what we have is a single insert chest. And this is very powerful because all I have to do now is let's even these up till I have 51, for example, of each. And I can toss these in here. It's going to take those two items because they're filtered here, and then the result just gets pulled right back. And so the operation just keeps looping until it's completed. Now, while I'm showing off some more LaserIO stuff, let me show you some other cool things that it can do. So technically, this is a single network on its own, but you can string together multiples of these. And so all you have to do is shift right click with a wrench and then right click another LaserIO node, and these two are connected to each other. Now, it doesn't matter which connection you connected from, just so long as they are connected to each other. And so if I had extracts over here in a barrel, it would still recognize over here. Or if I had an insert that needed to go over here, it would recognize it with these connected together. Now, there's another cool thing that you can do in here. You can start to play around with the colors. And so you can actually change the colors of these cables. So if you have a certain theme you're going with, you can definitely do that. And if you don't like the lasers at all, what you can do is you can keep your wrench alpha on, and this is going to show it even if you have your wrench on, but you can disable your alpha. And by doing that, the laser disappears entirely in case you wanted some sort of clean look. Now, let's say you wanted to connect to this node over here. Well, it's going to cause a little bit of problem because it's a little bit further out of its range. And the way that you can fix this is by using a laser connector. So you can just connect to this node, and then you can connect from here to that. And so now these are also both connected utilizing this laser connector. Now, some other advanced things, there is another type of connector that also works cross-dimensionally. And that one would essentially allow you to link two connectors together cross-dimensionally and then, of course, string together more nodes. So, of course, let me know down in the comments. Hopefully this wasn't too confusing, and let me know if you want to try out LaserIO for yourself, because I know there are a lot of people I have talked to who are kind of scared of LaserIO or just haven't taken the time to learn how it works and are kind of afraid of it when they open the GUI. I mean, it definitely does look daunting at first, but it's super simple. Now, one more logistical thing that LaserIO has up its sleeve is the fact that it has a priority system on its insertion cards. So if you're extracting an item from something and you have multiple locations that you want it to go to, and you have one chest that you want it to go into first, well, all you'd have to do on your insertion card is increase the priority. So the higher priority, it will go to that node first, or that export first. So this is very powerful when it comes to mob farms and many other things, especially if you want certain items trashed, and then if they, or check if they can go into a certain location. There's a lot of uses for that, believe me. And so with that covered, we're going to be diving into some more advanced topics about LaserIO definitely down the road, especially when it comes to mob farms, because I think that they are fantastic for those. Now, some things to note though about server performance when it comes to LaserIO nodes. These do take upgrades, and your extraction cards can receive these overclocker upgrades, allowing you to basically send one stack of items a tick. So you can send one item a stack per tick. And then you also have, inside of these insertion slots, you have a slot down here. This is a node overclocker, and essentially what it can do is it can allow you to use up to 9 of these slots at once. So if you put 8 cards in here, it will simultaneously use all of these slots all at once, essentially allowing you to send 9 stacks of items per tick. And while that does sound amazing and is very useful for a single player world, on a server, it just doesn't work out so well. And especially if you are utilizing its entire capacity. So something to bear in mind, and that's from my own experiences on servers. And we've done a lot of testing between servers that we've ran for the supporters. So definitely worth keeping in mind. And that just goes for anything. Really just utilize what you need for that given task, because going overboard will end up even causing you TPS lag, which is the ticks per second in the game, which should be set at 20. It will start to dwindle those even in single player. So bear that in mind with a lot of things set up. But if you keep this tame, this mod can be phenomenal. Now, with the complexities of LaserIO out of the way, we need to still start progressing through, well, the whole mod that we started in the first place, and that's Powah. Now, the main early progression with the Powah stuff is taking our energizing rods, which at the moment are just starter, and we need to take all of these and just continue to upgrade them utilizing the materials that we're getting at the moment from our energizer. So yeah, you have to kind of scale things up. So you start off small and you work your way up. And there are also mystical agriculture crops for these particular things. So like the steel, you have these, but keep in mind, this does cost an entire compressed block of energized steel, or 4 compressed blocks of it, which will be nice to have later on. But for right now, we can just use this to start upgrading. So at the moment, this will take us to the basic tier, but then we need to make these hardened capacitors, and these capacitors right here utilize that energized steel. So now after upgrading these, we're going to start working our way through all of the different tiers. So as of right now, we have the energized steel, but I need to also start working on making the blazing now that I've upgraded the power a little bit. And the blazing is probably about as far as I'm going to be able to go at the moment, because this is going to require quite a bit of power. Using just one blaze rod, it requires 90,000 FE. And the same situation applies for this. If we try to just hopper these in, it needs only one at a time. So that would be a problem. So in here, I can just simply remove these from the list, and now I can just add one single blaze rod, and this is ready to go. No other modifications needed. Now, aside from the blaze rods that are flickering on and off because, well, this is what's only powering it, I can go ahead and start making some other things. So instead of what's going on in here, I'm going to try and utilize this. So one eye of Ender, and then a casing, and then all of these put together make something very special. So as soon as this one is done, actually, I'm going to grab that out right now. As soon as I put these in, this is going to start making something else, which is called an Ender core. And the Ender core is going to be utilized for the wireless power system built into Powah, and then it's also going to be utilized for our wireless power for ourselves. So after grinding out a bit of these resources, I am now ready to set up some power and also get some wireless power set up. So for right now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be utilizing an Ender cell and an energy cell. Now these are two different things. Do not get them confused. And honestly, the Ender cell, very easy to craft. The energy cell, well, not so much, as it is pretty much recursive crafting. So let's go ahead and place in our Ender cell. Now our Ender cell is ultimately what's going to give us the wireless power, but it doesn't have the ability to store power on its own. That's where we have to use the energy cell. And while we're inside the GUI for this, we can hold down Shift and right click this in. And now we can store up to 40 million power and can transfer on this particular tier up to 40,000 in and out. Now, believe it or not, this little block is very, very powerful because once we start sending power into this, we can then start to use these Ender gates. These things are very cheap to make, and these things will carry a wireless signal and allow us to insert power in or out. So for right now, with this being connected to this pipe, this technically would allow power in. So if these were no longer working, this would start to fill up with power. But this can also be used to power things. So something that doesn't have power, we can just tap on one of these and this will start sending, for example, on this tier being hardened, up to 5,000 RF per tick in and out. Now I do want to upgrade my power a little bit, and so I've also made a magmator, and this is going to require lava, but in this pack, lava is super easy to gain. We just need a superheating element as of right now, and also the porcelain crucible and some cobble to go into it. So one of the easiest ways to set this up is probably going to be placing this directly next to the energy cell to give this power. And then we just need to set this guy up here. I think I'm going to place this directly on the superheating element, porcelain. And then beside this, we're going to want our cobble gen. And so we'll have the cobble gen sending the items, and I'm going to use some low tier version of this stuff just to show you that it can easily keep up on these low tiers. And so that should start sending cobble in here, and that gets immediately converted into lava. Then we can just use a regular pipe to pull the lava out and go directly into the magmator. And this right here is going to start producing power, as you see right here. And this produces 800 power per tick, or RF per tick. And that's for just one. This could totally be scaled up, and not to mention this right here, this way outweighs these wind generators. As if you remember, those are at this level only producing about 35 power per tick. So to just again demonstrate the wireless power from this, all we have to do now is take our Ender gate, and we can place this on the back, for example, of this power cable, and that is energizing all of these. And these should be working a lot smoother now. And power is something we definitely needed, because if we're going to move into any of the future stuff like storage systems, we're going to need a lot more power. And I think this has been the perfect minor upgrade to our power system, as things are going to get much larger very, very soon as we dive into some interesting power generation mods. But for now, I'll take what I can get with the small amount of resources I have as I slowly but surely build up in my progression. So now with all of that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hopefully you learned something new, of course, about LaserIO or about the Powah mod. And with that, I will see you, of course, in the next episode. So be sure to click that subscribe button so you do not miss out on future episodes just like that. And give this video a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And of course, it helps satisfy those YouTube gods. Ah, man, just gotta serve that algorithm. And of course, before we end off, I do want to give a huge shout out to the supporter of today's episode, and that is going to go out to Jordan. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support by choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Thank you so very much, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. So, of course, as always, thanks for watching. Bye!